Basically, what Jesus is doing is he's using your physical eyesight as a metaphor for how you think about the world. Your worldview, basically, is what he's talking about. So he's saying you can either have a good worldview or you can have a bad worldview. If you were a Jewish guy or a Jewish woman living in that day 2,000 years ago, it was pretty common for them to talk about the evil eye as a greedy eye. So a greedy person had an evil eye, and Jesus is basically saying you can have a worldview, an approach to money that is motivated by greed, or you can have an approach to money that's motivated by God, or looks at money through the lens of the kingdom of God. And Jesus is just warning us, if you have a bad worldview, then you're going to have bad money management. If you have a good worldview of how you think about money is proper, then you're going to have good money management. He might ask us, the first question he would ask us is, where's your treasure? The second question he would ask us is what's your perspective? What's your worldview? How do you think about money? And here we are, we're Christians, we live in Abilene, Texas, but whether we like it or not, we are American Christians, and we are shaped by our American culture to a large degree. We cannot help it. It kind of seeps into the pores as we live in this culture. And if you think about how most Americans think about money, I would say it's motivated by the consumption assumption. I borrow that language from Andy Stanley, but I really think it's true that for most Americans, we live with the assumption that everything that I have, money-wise, is for my consumption. Everything that I have is for my consumption, the consumption assumption. And that usually falls into two different categories. There are those who believe everything's for my consumption now, and we would call those the spenders. And then there are the other people, you probably married one, who are the consume it later people. And we call them the hoarders or the savers, if we want to put a nice term on it. And you're probably one or the other, and you probably married your opposite, and you have a wonderful marriage. But Jesus is saying, be careful. Think about your worldview, because the consumption assumption at the core is really motivated by greed. It's really motivated by the assumption that everything that I have is for my consumption. Some say I want to consume it now so that I can get greater sweetness out of life. And other people say I'm going to consume it later so that I can get more security out of life. But both assumptions are really dangerous if they're not tempered by a perspective that sees God as being part of your finances.